I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I feel my fate in what I cannot fear. I learn by going where I have to go.
There's so much I took for granted. The simplest things around me. The ease of walking through a door. Or stepping up a curb. Even my own attitudes and judgments. I had so much based on how easy it was. So much of myself. When walking across a street, was this me? This movement? Is that what I'm holding on to? My disability has been a shock. A shock to me, my family, my friends. I'm numb and I haven't wanted to think about what lies ahead. I've been afraid, but I'm learning I can't let this fear sacrifice my future. I've had a lot of care, a lot of time to think. I need to get moving, to get out, to get involved.
Rehabilitation is awakening to change. Your recovery from a disabling accident or illness will depend, for the most part, on you. The rehabilitation process is a journey, with the destination being as much a state of mind as it is acquiring new skills and relearning old patterns. It is recognizing your own biases and judgments as well as those of others, and how these can negatively affect your own self-image. It is rebuilding your strength, both mental and physical, and moving back into the process of living. This journey starts off uphill, and it is not an easy climb. Only after much patience and practice will you begin to extend your range, begin to do those things today you think impossible, but only yesterday you took for granted. Part of this recovery process is discovering your options in movement, your access to mobility. To help you in that process, this program will, in the next few minutes, introduce you to the wheelchair. The wheelchair is a tool that will increase your options and access to the life around you and allow you back into the routine of living. You will also be introduced to some of the people and activities involved in the journey you are about to begin, such as Del Martin, who has been using a wheelchair for 26 years.
I like to drive things. Driving gives you a tremendous amount of freedom that you don't have in a wheelchair. And when I first saw the advertisement for the motorcycle that you could drive from the sidecar, I thought, boy, that's something I've got to have. And I finally just decided, what the heck, I'm going to get it, and one way or another I'll learn how to drive it. So I ordered it and had it shipped out here, and it took quite a while. When I first got on it and first tried it, I thought, boy, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to handle this. But after about 500-600 miles of back roads and around, I got to be a little more comfortable with it, and I was able to redesign it a little bit to make it handle better, and to the point now where I feel real comfortable riding it. The things I've done because I wanted to do them, not because I thought, well, gee, that would be a good hobby for me because I'm in a wheelchair. I don't think that way. I think about the things I want to do and then figure out a way to do it.
To begin the process is to understand something about yourself. the limitations of your illness or injury, and how this applies to your own choices. Choices both in wheelchair selection and in its overall use in your life.
Wheelchair basketball became a catalyst for me to learn more skills, to appreciate the daily requirements of a person that's in a chair. The energy cost of walking for me is significantly higher than it is to push a chair. I found that any place that required a lot of walking, it was infinitely easier for me to take the chair. Once I got beyond the barrier of the psychological barrier of using the chair and thinking of it as a recognition of disability, of advanced disability, and recognized for myself it opened up many options for me that weren't available as an ambulatory person. In choosing a wheelchair, it's important to understand your level of injury, but some of the factors that'll influence your choice as well is your age, your size, your strength, and your previous lifestyle, or what you intend to do in the chair. Another important factor in choosing a wheelchair would be consulting other wheelchair users. They've been around the block a few times and can share some good information with you. That information, in addition to your healthcare professional that knows you real well too, can make a real good wheelchair decision for you.
Disabilities are classed on a variety of levels based on a number of factors: the type of injury, the amount of muscle spared in your accident or illness, and your muscle strength, just to name a few. It is important to realize that identifying the level of your disability is not defining you to a fixed category, but rather providing a general guide. Over time, you may find that you can stretch beyond any stated measure. Kevin Hansen.
The first 6 years of my injury, I was pretty much a power chair quad. I used a power chair to get everywhere. You really need a power chair in order to get from point A to point B when you're dealing with what some of the wheelchair athletes call walkies or ABs, in order to keep up with them, in order to make your meetings on time. It's really unrealistic, I think, for a lot of C4-5 functional C6 quads to think that they can get into a manual chair and use it all the time. However, I do think, and I think I'm living proof, that you can become almost completely reliant upon a manual wheelchair and raise your level of fitness to such a degree that you can pass for para, at least a 1C or a 1B.
I want to demonstrate to you today some of the major muscle groups we're going to be using. We're going to be strengthening.
Before venturing out into the community, you will be working with a healthcare specialist on a few basic skills. You will need to practice these skills and build up a degree of confidence that will enable you to more easily overcome the barriers you will meet outside. Propelling and stopping, front end elevation, and the use of environmental stationary objects. 4 skills you will need to be comfortable with before trying them out in the community. Jim Deffenbaugh.
It's an entirely different life. You almost do the same thing, but it's got to be slower and a little different. And I build my electric fences, and I set up my shop myself, but it takes a little longer. And sometimes I get frustrated, but then I cool down and say, there can't be no other way to it. Most of the things you can do, but it's like I said, it's a little you're going to have to think before you can do it. I mean, anything, you're going to have to think before you can do it, even in the shop or any place. These wheels are not going to keep me at home if I want to do something. Active person gets hurt, he's going to get active back, but somebody, just sits around all day and never been active, he's going to go back that way, I think. Oh, I'll have to tell anybody in the chair, you can go any place you want to. You just make your, take your mind and say, I'm going, regardless what's going to happen. And that's it.
As a new user who will soon begin to practice these skills in the community, you will need to be aware of your surroundings. When possible, take special care to plan your routes ahead of time. Once out in the community, you will soon face a variety of barriers which again and again will draw out the question, can I? You begin to wonder how you're going to adjust to a world that won't always adjust to you. There are curbs, stairs, inclines, varied surfaces, narrow doors, and people with narrow attitudes. What before had gone unnoticed, now as you begin to acquire new skills, loom formidably before you. So, allow yourself the grace to be frightened. Allow yourself the grace at times to be awkward, make mistakes, and feel at times embarrassed. But also allow yourself the grace to laugh as you integrate your skills into your way of life. Learning any new skill requires that you allow yourself to be patient and trust that in the long term your skills, so hard fought, will become secondary in nature, even though at first this seems a long way off. Know, too, that learned skills will vary from user to user based on each person's unique ability and style. As you practice the skills shown in this program and begin to learn the range of your abilities, you, too, will adapt them to your own style. Rod Hart.
Wheelies are a very key skill, and it's a real good one to learn quickly because it does facilitate using other skills. You have to look at all the skills in terms of integration with others. If you do a wheelie, you also need to be able to have some good strength with pushing. Proficiency in wheelchair skills is not a matter of having it right away or of being able to learn a specific thing, but it just takes time in using the skills that you need. For instance, if you want to jump curbs, large curbs or small curbs, you just have to go out there and do ones you can handle, and eventually you'll be able to do the good ones. Another thing, if you want to get good at pushing a chair, you have to push it. So you go up some hills, or you push around on sidewalks. You try the various surfaces. It just takes time. My principal theory would be that you have to do it to get good at it. And you don't have to go out and jump 8, 12-inch curbs, but what you have to do is jump some curb and push somewhere.
Along every street and at every corner, you will face a common obstacle, the curb. More and more streets and sidewalks are designed with curb cuts that provide easier access for the wheelchair user. Unfortunately, there are still plenty of streets with curbs that will provide you a challenge. Though a power chair relying on suspension forks will not elevate the front end as a manual chair, both need to proceed with care when approaching a curb cut. Many wheelchairs have low footrests, and you run the risk of underpopping. Underpopping is a front-end elevation or wheelie that is too low, allowing your footrest to scrape or dig into the graded or inclined curb cut. This action can pitch you forward and possibly out of your chair if you're not wearing a lap belt. When deciding whether to negotiate a curb, you should consider the curb's size as well as your speed and direction. You should also pay close attention to the approach to the curb. Whether it is uphill or down is important as to whether it will assist or hamper your progress. Most streets have a crown and slope down to the curb to allow for drainage. Again, be careful. When learning the front-end elevation or wheelie, you run the risk of overpopping. Overpopping is elevating the front wheels too high and falling backward. To go off a curb, you may want to use a more controlled approach. Mike Neer.
Yeah, I remember pushing out and going up a hill that seemed to be just horrendous, and now going up that hill now is fairly easy without much trouble, you know, that very same hill. Going off my first curb was a major obstacle too. I wasn't really familiar with using a wheelie, and I overcorrected and fell over backwards on cement, which didn't do my head any good, but it all comes with practice, trial and error, getting back up again and trying it.
Some of the most frustrating barriers are stairs and steps. These come in many shapes and sizes and can often block your access unless you have assistance. When going up steps, you should have 2 persons giving you assistance. When going down steps, you will only need 1 person to help. Some steps, if they are low enough in height, few in number, and have enough depth, can be muscled up on your own. This will often require a good deal of effort and a good handrail. Going down a few steps, if widely spaced and not too high, is easier, but both should be considered a more advanced skill requiring physical strength. Larry Craig.
I know that when I first got started, just routine things were adventures and sometimes monotonous. I found that especially after first getting out of rehab and not knowing how to get around on public streets and dealing with the environment, that and being pretty weak, that I could get run down, and I found that I had to discipline myself in order to just get the routine things done.
Most modern buildings have ramps as a means of bypassing the stairs. They are also being added to many older buildings, and it is not only the wheelchair user who finds them useful. But the solution of one problem creates in itself its own difficulty: the incline. Most ramps are designed with the wheelchair user in mind and won't raise more than a foot in elevation every 12 feet. But some incline planes are not ramps, but sidewalks and streets. The difficulty with a ramp or any inclined surface is that it takes more energy and strength to go up or across. You will find that many sidewalks slope toward the curb for drainage, and even this slight grade will cause your downhill arm to burn out. John Hall.
One of the difficulties I had to overcome in choosing to use a powered chair was, I think, a prejudice both among the disabled community but also among the professionals, that everyone should be functioning at their maximum physical capability. If you can get around in a manual chair at all, you should be in a manual chair. This was a bias at the time of my injury, and one that I bought into for a while. Then I realized that I was pushing myself 1.5 miles or 2 miles in a manual chair, taking an incredible amount of time to go to a place where the professionals I was working with were hopping in their cars and driving to the same place and telling me I needed to be in a manual chair. I was getting some of that same hit off of people who had a disability and were running around in sports chairs and were much more capable physically than I was.
As you begin to use the wheelchair, you will notice the difference in the surfaces you cross. The smoother the surface, the less drag, less work. You will also find that most surfaces, especially outside, are not smooth. There are pebbles and rocks and cracks and bumps and glass. The way around these barriers is through increased awareness. Be aware that some surfaces require care and caution. Remember, you need to evaluate your path, though in a wheelchair, you still choose your steps. Jeff Cooper.
These dogs are so hyper, she just started running, and he just started following her. And then he got to be big enough to where he could keep up. Now he's the powerhouse. He's the puller. When we start, for about the first 10 blocks, we're clipping off 25 or 30 miles an hour, and then they mellow out to a good 10, 15 mile pace. When they love to pull me, boy, they love to do it. They're good dogs. And it's always good reactions. Most people like dogs, and then seeing them pull me down the street, they always say, "Yeah, that's the way to go," you know.
Doors can provide still another challenge to your daily travels. A door by itself seems a simple concept, but there are a great many considerations. The width. Does your chair fit? The weight of the door. Can you open it? The approach. Can I get in the door, and is there room to maneuver? Traffic. How many people are going in and out? And direction. Does the door open in or out, or is it automatic? Doors can be difficult, so ask if you need assistance. Laura Baker.
One of the first questions I had when I was first aware that I was going to be living in my life in a wheelchair was about relationships and about dating. I was fairly active and had a lot of friends when I was hurt, and liked boys, 16 of course, and I was so afraid that I wouldn't nobody would see anything in me anymore. After the first person I went out with kind of broke the ice, I didn't have any problems then finding guys that would be interested in taking me out. And I dated 4 years and then ended up marrying one of them. Not 4.
The final and greatest barrier you'll find in many of the people around you, as well as in yourself, is one of attitude. There will be those who look, and those who avoid looking. There will be a few who discriminate, and some that just don't care. There will even be those who care too much. But most are people who are concerned, good-intentioned, and mean well, though at times they may act awkward. Just like you. Being patient and tolerant, not only of others but of yourself as well, is a skill that will help you move beyond these barriers. The more comfortable and confident you become with yourself, the more at ease others will be with you. B. Joe Ashwell.
I'm okay, just the way I am. Disabled, yeah, you know, that's a part of my life. I got blue eyes, I'm disabled, I have a car that's a certain make. It's just a fact of my life. And just let it become a part of your life, not the significant problem of your life. The chair is just a tool. It is there to assist you to get to where you need to go. And it's the mind that is going to stop you. It's not the chair. It's not the disability. It is your attitude about that disability. And you only live once.
Having control over your own life is getting involved. Control is doing. As your skills and strengths become more a part of your natural style and manner, you will begin to explore other avenues, testing limits and new activities. Start by getting involved with other more experienced wheelchair users. They will be a big help in showing you the ropes in these new activities, helping you to set your own pace. The choice will be yours, from cooking and shopping to skiing and sailing. The wheelchair is your access. Your options are contained in knowing your limitations and at the same time having the courage to stretch them. But you have to try. You have to find those limits. Be careful, get the proper training, but go and do. Mark Williams.
I've learned a lot in these years. Since my accident, I came out of that hibernation and became the state champion at sailboat racing. I've won in the year 1983. I never lost a race that season. I've got into the ATVs. There's nothing better than to get out in the woods and up in the mountains and go ATVing or down at the beach and for the weekend or something like that. I've never found anything that wheelchair has caused me to feel handicapped. I can do more things than most people can.
Where am I going? I'm not sure. So much has changed. It is hard at times to think. I do have ambitions, the same ambitions. I get tired, physically and mentally. Some days, as much as I want to, I just don't have the patience, either with myself or those around me. But then there are good days, and they're coming more often. I'll do something different and realize it's getting easier. Where am I going? I guess I'm going forward, along with the rest. Just maybe a little slower. Maybe.